As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
All right, Woods people, the season is going to be here faster than you can imagine. I know you've all been out there dialing in your archery equipment.
Actually, there's a real world out there, and if you're anything like me and my friends, you've been taking your time getting your bow ready.
We'd never advocate for you being irresponsible, but we understand it's pretty easy to end up really busy this time of year.
Hey, I've been busy building brownie points.
Does it work?
Yeah, they don't carry over.
Well, we decided to call up some of the experts to get some of their ideas on some of the things that might help you be more successful this season.
That's a good thing, because my 10-yard pin needs a little work.
Like that doesn't work, I think. All right, today on the show, I've got Laven Newsom and Caleb Sorrells with Shrewd Archery. What's going on, dudes?
How's it going, guys?
Hey, man. It's hot, and hot. I just had a 4.5-hour flight from Seattle to DFW. So today's been... you know, I've had better days, but it's not a bad day. You know, every day you get to kind of pursue your dreams. It's a good day. So, anyways, what's the weather like where y'all are at?
It's been probably about the same. It's been hot and humid up here.
Yeah.
So we're ready for it to get a little cooler this fall.
Yeah. Where are y'all based at?
We're Southwest Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia, Salem, Virginia.
Gotcha. Okay. See, I thought that there was a touch of like a southern-ish accent, so you weren't like way up east, you know? I didn't know exactly where it was, though. But do you claim to be Southerners, or what do you claim to be?
Caleb is from Indiana.
Oh, he's definitely not. He's an Iron Belt guy, huh?
Yeah, and he rolled in here in his first couple weeks. He was ordering unsweet tea, and he pronounces a couple words pretty weird. So he's not, but the rest of us, the other 30-something of us here, we all probably claim to be.
Gotcha. What's your barbecue sauce like where you're at?
It's good. I'm a big sauce guy.
Yeah.
So my method is put everything on it and just kind of see how it tastes.
Gotcha.
So,
do y'all have like that mustard base, or is it kind of more of a tomato base or something?
Carolina barbecue sauce is pretty mustard based, I would say.
Gotcha.
So it kind of depends. We're right in the middle of a couple different varieties.
Yeah.
So you get a good mix anywhere you go.
We get that. We kind of have like the apple cider vinegar, a little bit kind of, you know, more liquid barbecue sauce, and then there's some of the thicker stuff too. But you can kind of always, you know, tell where you're at in the South a little bit by the barbecue and how it tastes and what people do. So it's kind of a fun deal. We kind of like to eat every time we travel. We're trying to eat something new and different wherever we go. So I don't know. It's just kind of what makes things fun, I guess, about all the different places in the country we can go. But so what we had you on the show today to talk about was not barbecue, but I can go off on many tangents with food if you'd like to do so. But y'all been Shrewd's been in the stabilizer business for quite a few years, and you have pretty extensive background in that kind of stuff, and that's stuff that Tyler and I just really don't have a clue. I can tell you I've owned one stabilizer in my life, and it was just a rubber weight, and that's about all I know about them. So we figured kind of in our pursuit of trying to get better at this whole archery gig, we better talk to somebody who actually knows some stuff. So tell me a little bit about Shrewd Archery and kind of your family's background with that.
Yeah, so our machine shop, my grandfather started it back in the 60s, and we were just a machine shop metal stamping operation. So we used to make all like the military ID tags. We do a lot of work in like automotive and naval industry still.
Oh, cool.
All our employees get a key to the building, and we call it government work. So they can come in after hours, and they can make their own things. And so we've had a couple brands internally that have sprung out of that, and Shrewd is one of those.
Yeah.
So we had a machinist about 25 years ago that started making grips, and he moved on, and we kind of kept that rolling, and we've expanded from there. So we've been making archery parts in-house for a little over 20 years.
Cool. And like, where did the archery side of things come from? Is it kind of a passion project for you, or like, how did y'all go from just being a machine shop to that? I guess you said something about grips. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, we had, again, the employees can come in and they can kind of work on their passions. And part of our reason for doing that is we've had success in building brands from our employees' passions, and a lot of times it overlaps with ours. So in that instance, the gentleman back then, he was making grips and for bows, and a lot of our guys in the shop are bow hunters, and they were all pretty interested, and it caught on locally really well. And my parents, specifically Sam, it was a passion of his as well, and so he kind of expanded the line, and we initially went pretty heavy in the target side of archery. So we were making grips and scopes and sights and stabilizers. And every year we've always approached it a little bit differently. We don't, for better or for worse, we don't necessarily look at what's going to sell really well, and instead we look at what we want to make and what we feel we can improve on. And so our product line is a representation of that. We have a lot of different options. Most companies, specialize in one or two things, and we spread ourselves pretty thin and have a pretty diverse product lineup.
Yeah.
But from that, we've been able to make some pretty cool stuff, and we've been able to make a lot of products that other companies wouldn't. So I think what we're known for is the willingness and the ability to make products that a lot of companies aren't really interested in, and to really just try to make archery better and provide products that aren't out there currently.
Yeah, that's cool. So which side of the archery spectrum do you usually fall on?
In terms of target versus hunting?
Yeah.
From a time perspective, probably target. We just renovated upstairs in our front office, and we put a big indoor range, so it's easy to grab a bow off the wall and head up there. I personally maybe get in the stands twice a fall.
Yeah.
But Caleb has a lot more experience in that. He's actually heading is it Idaho?
Yeah, head to Idaho in September, and probably hit Indiana, where I'm from, again in November again. Just try and get out in the woods as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. Cool. So what are you hunting for in Idaho?
Doing an elk hunt.
Okay. Cool. Is that OTC, or did you put in for drawing stuff?
It's going to be OTC.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. There's some big ones over there. I actually flew over Idaho some today, and it looked like there would be some elk there for sure. I have never stepped foot in Idaho, but I know that I'd like to go there one day. What's your grizzly prevention system look like?
More or less, it'll probably be pepper spray, but try and avoid them as much as you can, just with your eyeballs.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. That's probably one of the things that has kept me south of Wyoming is just the grizz in general. I usually end up Colorado or this year New Mexico just because, man, those are scary big animals. Not to discourage you from your hunt because it's going to be awesome, but bear aware for sure. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
He's been doing a lot of running, so we told him as long as he's faster than whoever's with him, he should be all right.
That's right. That's right. Don't give your buddy your workout plan ever.
Exactly. Yeah. Keep feeding him beers.
That's right. Beers for the bears, right there, man. Oh, that's cool. So let's talk stabilizers a little bit, right? I mentioned earlier that we don't really know a ton about them. I kind of was a little tongue in cheek with my description of my knowledge, but that I wasn't lying in the fact that that's the only one I've ever had. I've researched it a little bit, but there's just so much you can learn off the internet, and talking to people who actually know things is way more valuable. So I guess let's just start out and maybe talk about what the point of having some sort of a stabilization device on your bow is.
So our primary approach to everything is we start on the target side in terms of target archery, and typically that's where a lot of our R&D dollars go.
Yeah.
And from that, the technology and whatever development we're able to do, that typically rolls into our hunting products. So for us, on the target side, the big thing is balance. And with that balance, it's about keeping your pin or your dot, whatever you're running, is right on that center X or the center 12, whatever you're aiming at. Mm-hmm. So when you're at full draw, if that pin's wandering all over the place, you're obviously not going to shoot a very good score.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas if you get that bow balanced really well and that pin can just settle every time, that's when you start getting some 900s in Vegas. We're lucky enough on the target side, we work with some of the best guys and girls around the world, and Brady and some of the guys on the Olympic team. So the products that we're able to develop for them, if Brady can go out there and win Olympic medals with it, we can take a lot of the technology and roll it on the hunting platform and do some pretty cool stuff. So on the hunting side, it's difficult. You know, you walk into like your Bass Pro or your Cabela's or your local archery store, and there's a lot of products, and they all look kind of the same. And for us, a lot of what we do that separates our products from others is what we do internally. So we're not much flash, and we're a lot more substance. Mm-hmm. So for us, you know, it's balance, and then it's vibration elimination and dampening. So that naturally, for us, we found the best way to do that is internally. So you see a lot of products, and our hunting products have external, you know, dampening, but internally, that's really what we found works the best. So again, you know, the main point of that stabilizer, it's to balance out your bow, and then especially when you're stand, it's the vibration elimination and the dampening, and then the noise reduction that comes from that.
Yeah.
So, you know, if your bow can be quiet, you know, the animals aren't going to hear you. If your bow's quiet after the shot, all your stuff on the bow isn't rattling around, and, you know, your air rest isn't coming loose. So, you know, the bow manufacturers have done a tremendous job in decreasing the vibration naturally, but you can always go above and beyond that.
Gotcha.
And that's where our products kind of come into that. It's stabilizing that bow, and then it's keeping it pretty dead in the hand.
Yeah, cool. So, what is it, you know, about a hunter or a target archer that makes a pin float around so badly?
It can be a combination of things. Naturally, it's, you know, nerves are going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
You know, when you're at full draw and you're staring down your dream buck, or if you're at full draw and you're on like an archery tournament and you got 1,000 people screaming at you, it's naturally you're going to get some movement there. So we can't control the nerves, but what we can control is, you know, when you're at full draw, if you use the stabilizer how it's supposed to be used, and you use that front and the back bar, use weights correctly, you can get that bow, so naturally it's going to want to sit on that pin for you. So if you're fighting, you know, to keep that pin elevated or bring it down or bring it in left or right, regardless of how calm you are, you're not going to have consistent scores, and you're not going to hit consistent shots.
Gotcha.
So for us, a big thing is adjustability. We approach, you know, it's not necessarily as much a stabilizer as it is a stabilization system. So, you know, for us, the best thing we can do is to make sure the stabilizers are adjustable as possible. You know, they come stock with some weight, so you can add and take off weight right out of the box. And then typically, you know, we see shooters use a front and a back bar, and through that you're using a V-bar and a disconnect. So it's one big system, and the system works in tandem, and the system does its job. It makes, you know, the shooter's life easier. You know, quick disconnects and V-bars enable you to take the stabilizers off and store them in the box, and you're not unthreading from your riser every single time. And that whole package just works together. So, you know, when your front and your back bar are adjustable and they share the same weight, you can move that weight around, and you can really dial it in pretty well.
So, do 1,000 people really scream while? I mean, is it like a free throw? You know, like in college and NCAA, like where you're taking a shot, and like, because I have no clue about the target stuff. It's not something that I've ever done really at all, or had too much interest in. Just because I grew up hunting and I have plenty of time spent in that already. My wife would not like me if I was into target stuff as well, you know?
Yeah, between hunting and target, it's you can drop a good amount of money on that. But no, it's closer to golf. It's more of the it's pretty quiet while they're shooting, and then it erupts pretty quickly afterwards, and you get your occasional guy that kind of yells in the backswing. But,
is there like a in the hole going on at all, or is it just too quick? Before, you know?
Always get somebody out there hollering something.
I feel like
especially
you'd want to like do like a really quick turn and just, you know, maybe sling one in the audience every once in a while when a guy's like, hey, you know, like I don't know.
Yeah, we're always waiting for that, but luckily nobody's gone on that road yet.
That's good. It might change some safety measures if that was the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for forever, and I'm speaking from the hunting world, okay, but forever in the hunting space, guys just put a front stabilizer on their bow, and that's the way it was done. And then it seems like in the past couple years, this is me being an observer, that the whole back bar became like a huge deal, and that's like the thing to do nowadays. So why was the front stabilizer good for a long time, and suddenly, you know, things changed and people thought they needed the back bar as well?
Yeah, Caleb can probably weigh on this a little better than I can. I'll let him jump in.
Okay.
So in the same instance that our company kind of follows suit, like whatever the target industry does, the hunting industry has done very much the same thing. So for years and years and years, a sidebar or a back bar on a target bow wasn't common practice. And here in the last, I would say 10, maybe 15 years, it started to really pick up, and we've gotten more and more weight on the bars and more weight on the back bar in particularly. So as guys have, you know, started to get used to that on their target rigs, they've started to transfer it over to their hunting stuff as well. And, it's kind of like for lack of a better term, a top-down way of going about everything. Once the target guys and different people have started running that kind of stuff on their hunting rigs, people have started experimenting with it, and, it's just kind of grown from there.
To me, the way we hunt, KC and I, a lot of times, we are on the ground some. We do some tree stand hunting. We hunt a lot of public, so we may be walking in a mile or whatever. It just seems like a back bar carrying that bow around as much as we do would be heavy. Like at what point do you go, I have to have one? Is that a situation where you're pretty much stand hunting and you got a short walk to your stand or whatever?
We really don't see like a difference in that per se, because like most of the time your sidebar is going to have a quick disconnect on it. So you're going to be able to take a half turn to 3/4 of a turn of your bar and be able to slide it into your pack and be able to pack your bow in, without it on there. And, if you're making a quick shot under 50 or 60 yards, even past that, the difference between your point of impact is going to be very minimal with the back bar on there or not. When it really comes down to it and you have the time to set up and make, a good shot, you got time to put it on there.
Yeah.
But the difference in it,
a big thing for us, a lot of that comes back to, R&D process. On the target side, it's a lot of, you want weight saving with still having performance. And so the hunting side, it does the same thing. So, if you pick up Joe's bow and Joe just has like one of our 9-inch stabilizers on the front, and then you pick up Joe's another bow and it's got, a V-bar and a back bar, there's a difference. It's not a tremendous amount, unless you've just loaded it down with weight. Mm-hmm. So, for us, a big part of our process is that material selection. So on the hunting side, the carbon wall doesn't have to be as thick. We don't have to use, as tightly woven carbon, and we can reduce some weight there. And the length, plays a huge part in that too. You're not putting a 12-inch bar off the back. So, if you angle that down, realistically, it's not sticking a whole lot farther back than your string stop or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's definitely a time and a place. Don't get me wrong. If I'm crawling through the weeds, hunting around, I'm probably not going to want a back bar on there. It's another thing you got to worry about. But I think for the majority of hunters, it's becoming a lot more common. And like Caleb said, naturally, target archery is growing, and you're getting more people on the target. And as hunters see that and they start doing target, it's working. There's a reason these guys on the target side are winning and are as consistent as they are. It's a lot of that has to come down to the equipment.
Sure. What's the, you kind of spoke to this a little bit, but I think Caleb did. What's the difference, as far as, how much more tightening are you getting on your groups when you're using a back bar, at kind of reasonable hunting distances on, say, deer and similar sized targets? Is it, are you looking at more of the long range side of things where it helps you out, say on elk shooting through windows at 60, 70 yards, or what's the benefit there?
A lot of that, obviously, it's got to be set up correctly. So if you just slap a back bar on there and you go shoot behind your house and you don't take the time to really balance it out and dial it in, you're not going to see a huge difference. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is just consistency. So if you want to make a good shot time and time and time again, having that back bar and having that bow balance and having that pin really sit and settle, that's where you're going to notice the difference. You could throw a back bar on and go shoot once and take it off and shoot again, and you may hit in the same spot, and those groups may stay tight. But naturally, over time, you're going to see an improvement there. And, 60, 70 yards, when that pin, is really sitting pretty still and that animal's moving around, it's going to make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is there kind of a golden rule or ratio to length on front and back and weight on front and back?
Again, it kind of just stems from what we found in target stuff. With hunting, it's kind of difficult because you don't want to, overextend or run too long of a bar that is going to interfere with your natural ability to get around obstacles and make a shot in a timely manner.
Yeah.
So, speaking from the target side of it, it's always been kind of a 3-to-1 or a 2-to-1 ratio. So, like, say your bar on the front is X amount longer than the bar on the back. Usually you want to put about 2 ounces to every 1 ounce on the front bar.
Okay.
Same kind of goes for hunting as well. So, I mean, you have a 12 or a 10-inch front bar with 1 or 2 ounces. Your back bar is going to be, 6 to 7 inches with a 4 to 6 ounces if you're going to use that same ratio.
Gotcha.
We do a 7, a 9, and a 12-inch. The majority of the industry, I would say, probably does like a 6, an 8, and a 10.
Mm-hmm.
We settled 7, 9, and 12 for a variety of reasons, but you're not going longer than 12. And we sell some 12s. We sell 7s and 9, 10 to 1 over the 12-inch bars.
Yeah.
And the big thing we always say with that weight adjustment, you can always make your stabilizer longer. You're not bringing it in the garage and sawing off the end of it to try to get shorter. So to start shorter is definitely going to be an advantage. And again, it's the how much of a difference you're going to see target to hunting is dramatic. On that hunting rig, going from a 9 to a 12, there's going to be a difference, but it's not like in target where you're going from maybe you're using like a 22-inch up to a 36-inch.
Wow.
So,
okay, so in a perfect world, is it just the longer the stabilizer, the better? Like if you're a target guy, or is there like a point of diminishing return?
I think there's definitely we go up to 36, so we go by twos, pretty much from 8 to 36, and 28s and 30s is definitely where 98% of your market's going to end up.
Yeah.
And like what Caleb mentioned, on the target side, we're seeing guys running 28, 30 ounces on the back and 15 and 16 ounces up front. So the weight it keeps just really scaling up, and the length hasn't really changed though. That 20 and the 30 is really your sweet spot for most shooters.
Gotcha.
And it's same thing for hunting. That 7 to 9 inch range is a really good range. Mm-hmm. It keeps it compact and it enables you to move around, but you still get some of the advantages of using a good stabilizer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I've been told that, if we go the opposite end of things and talk about how short you can go, that your stabilizer needs to get out in front of your limb pockets before you're ever actually doing any good for stabilization. Is that completely true?
Just based on kind of the geometry of the bow, I mean, to get like that forward weight on the bow, you got to extend it beyond, what the bow is already given you naturally.
Yeah.
So like your limb pockets is quite a bit of weight because it's aluminum limb pocket and it's a pretty big chunk of metal, and you've got your limb bolt and everything else right there as well. So you've already got, that weight kind of forward. So you want to get it beyond that on a reflex riser for sure.
Gotcha. So, what's the deal with like a downturned versus straight front stabilizer? I think we have a mutual buddy in Chris B, and I see he's got a downturned one out front all the time, and I don't really understand how it's going to make a difference.
So the biggest thing there is it's going to lower the overall center of gravity of the bow.
Gotcha.
So there's 2 ways. You have your risers that have more material above the grip than below. That's going to help get more of the weight down lower to where it's going to help balance that out a little bit more. But it also, when we were talking about sight picture, it's going to help it steady up a little bit quicker. I mean, some people have the theory that, it's like a quarter of the time or half the time it takes for the bow to actually settle down from the draw and getting settled into your shot.
Gotcha. So, I don't think that there's a lot of hunters that are like Chris, though, or maybe like you guys that know so much about the archery side of things and the physics and everything else that goes into the engineering side of it, and even engineering your own bow, essentially, just to shoot good, shoot and hit the targets where you want them to at the best of your ability. So, as far as I don't know how many just kind of normal hunters you guys know that don't get into the target side of things or whatever, but if you know a few of those guys, think about them and say, okay, what is, at what point is, because our local archery shop guy here, he basically is always like, yeah, stabilizer, you can't shoot the difference, and having one.
It's my least favorite quote in archery. I hate it so much.
So, what is, is that true? Do most hunters that are just kind of like Joes and may shoot their bow, a dozen times during the summer to kind of warm up for the season and get tuned in and everything? I mean, can they use a stabilizer to really help them much, or can they actually not shoot the difference?
I think a lot of it, I mean, at that point, I think what a lot of shooters are using a stabilizer for is more dampening than stabilization.
Gotcha.
So I think your average guy, when he walks in, and if he's just putting, a little 6-inch thing on there, just running off the front, if he has some weight, or it may do a little bit on the balance side. Really, at that point, what they're focused on is the dampening. So you see a lot of guys just running, your stock $15 Cabela, just rubber piece with a thread on it almost.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the stabilization side, when you're running stuff like that, there's going to be a difference. It's not going to be huge. On the dampening side, though, that's where the materials really come into play, and you can notice a big difference. So, if you take like our 9-inch stabilizer and you thread it on there, and then you take, the $15 box store stabilizer and thread it on there, and you shoot the bow, you're going to notice a big difference. What that dampening does, and our stabilizers is going to be dramatically different from what that, the $15 piece does.
Yeah. So have you guys quantified like a percentage or a number of decibels or whatever that, a stabilizer can potentially dampen noise?
Yeah, so I had to go ask our engineering team what the machine is that we use. So my pronunciation on this may be terrible. We use a triaxial accelerometer.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, right. It sounds fancy and fake, but apparently it's a real thing. I saw the bill for it a couple years ago. I know it's pretty expensive and real. And what we do is we have a static machine that holds that bow, and we have a machine that draws that bow back. So there's no human error in holding the bow or drawing it or doing anything like that. And then we have a bow that's rigged up, and we use the same bow every time. So you really, you have your scientific control there. So you kind of know your base point every time. And we have that bow rigged up with indicators and readers, and then we have the stabilizer. And we've done a lot of testing. And what we're looking for is when that bow goes off, it's the frequency and the movement, of the bow and the stabilizer. And then we can equate that to the dampening and how quickly it settles and everything like that. So we're looking at this curve, and it's at the time of the shot, the time of impact, what are we seeing in that graph, and then how quickly does that graph go back to flat? And it's not that, it's not that difficult to see what works and what doesn't work. And, I touched on briefly earlier, we focus a lot on internal dampening. So all of our stabilizers have internal dampening. The RAID, which is what we send down to you guys, that has our new truss dampening system, and that it's all internal. So the stabilizer is going to be a little bit heavier, but because of that weight, it's not just a hollow carbon tube that doesn't have anything in it. Mm-hmm. We use an external an external dampening, and we partner with Limb Saver on that, and it works, and it does a great job. And a lot of the reason we put that on there is, again, your average Joe that walks into a store, he wants to see some sort of external dampening. To him, that rubber piece on the end is that's what's going to dampen it. It's nothing inside, and that's something that we found. So, for us, we have the data, and we've kind of seen what works and what doesn't work. And for us on that RAID, the combination of that Limb Saver piece and our internal dampening along with the carbon that we use, you're going to notice a pretty big difference in how that bow feels at that time of shot.
Mm-hmm. And that's also going to help with like string jump on deer and stuff like that. So that's pretty awesome, man. I like that. I like that a lot.
On that dampening side of things, is it, and this might be more of a target question that kind of translates, but is it something about shooting a bow that feels good in the hand that gives you confidence, or because in the target world, like the same, it doesn't matter how loud the bow is, right? So, like, is it having a smooth shot in a bow that just kind of locks in place and doesn't jump around on you after the shot? Is the dampening there kind of to help mentally just as much as it is anything else?
Yeah, I think a lot of that too. It goes back. We touched on equipment. If you're shooting and that bow's rattling a lot, especially in target when you got 6 figures on the line, and if it's rattling and your sight comes loose just a little bit, a micro click here and there, that's the difference between first place and second place. And that's the difference. Vegas that checks inching up towards 100K right now, and second place, you're back like 15K maybe. Mm-hmm. So if that bow's jumping around, if your equipment on the bow's moving around, it's going to matter. And in hunting, it's the same way. You don't want to be out there shooting, and every time you shoot, your rest is coming loose, so your sight is moving a little bit, and over time, finally, you lose a bolt somewhere, and then you're just out of luck.
Yeah.
So that dampening, and a lot of it's mental too. If you shoot and the bow's rattling and everything's moving on you, it's the current concern of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you have a stabilizer that really settles and holds well and kills a lot of that vibration, you're going to feel a lot better about what you're doing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Man, there's been so many bows sold. I've heard this for years growing up, but like, man, that new Matthews, it just doesn't move in your hand, Like, it's just like, that's the thing that guys, when they shoot a bow, they want it to not make a sound and not move and no vibration. It feels good in your hand. And it's just crazy how people just, that's kind of the only things they'll look at sometimes when they go to talking about bows and stuff like that. So I guess that's I'm thinking that maybe bow shops are pretty smart about it and put like a pretty high, cutting edge stabilizer on there.
There you go.
But speaking of cutting edge in the stabilizer world, from an engineering standpoint, what are you guys trying to do to kind of somewhat be innovative or improve on your typical stabilizer? Because it's kind of a thing that's just kind of stuck out the front and been copied in certain ways for a long time now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, it's like if you're designing a car, what are you designing a car for? You want it to be safe, you want it to go fast, and you want it to look cool. And you can get there a lot of different ways, and you can continue to improve on materials you're using in the manufacturing process. And for us, it's a lot of the same. It's got to work really well. We know what it needs to do, and now it's about how can we get that same feeling, but we can build a better product. So a lot of the innovation comes on the material side. So we've talked about that and using that internal dampening system, and then we use pretty high-end carbon. Because of that, you're using like a thicker carbon wall, and it's more tightly woven, so you get a little bit heavier bar. So we start looking at how can we find new materials and develop new materials that are going to give you that same feel, but an overall lighter stabilizer. So like how can we take our top-of-the-line stabilizer, cut 2 ounces off a 30-inch bar, and it's going to give you the exact same feel that you have now. Because ultimately, that's what they want. They want more weight on there, but they don't necessarily want it in the stabilizer. They want it at the end. Mm-hmm. So it's us working with, a couple different carbon suppliers, and really focusing on how can we make the materials that we're using better, and how can we do something that nobody else is doing. And we're lucky that there's a lot of other big industries that do similar things. So we can look at what works well in golf and pole vault and things like that, and we can take a lot of that technology. And those companies have tens of millions of dollars in R&D budget, and we can put that in our products, and we can kind of get something that nobody else is thinking about and no one else is doing.
Yeah.
And we do, like I mentioned, we talk internal all the time. It's a big thing for us. Our stabilizers come with internal end caps, so you don't just get the external end cap. There's an internal end cap on that bow end. So where it makes contact with the riser, it's going to stay a lot stiffer. A lot of what we do inside in our machining and how we cut weight, it adds a lot of machine time, and it makes it a lot more difficult on the assembly side, but it makes a product that's a lot better. And our ability and the control we have doing everything in-house enables us to a lot of times build a product, like I said earlier, that our competitors just aren't willing to do. We can have a couple minutes in the assembly of one stabilizer, and some of the competitors that are doing things in Mexico and things like that, they can't do that. They got to be able to roll it off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So the materials it's a huge stressing point for us right now. It's developing better materials, better raw materials, and better finished goods.
Yeah, gotcha. I guess this is kind of like arrow spines and arrow building, right? So you're going to have an amount of weight at the end, and then you have to have something that's fairly stiff to hold up that weight and then not get noodly once vibration goes through it. Is that pretty much how it works?
Mm-hmm. It's the same process that you would, the same roll and the mandrel that you would make, a carbon arrow out of. It's the same process that you would make a stabilizer out of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you guys speak, you've kind of talked about it a little bit, but can you speak to the quick detach system and talk about the advantages of that specifically, and then also just speak to how, because you would think that something like that would create an opportunity for there to be more vibration or rattle within that, and how you guys have headed that off.
Yeah, so the primary point of that disconnect is kind of to do what it says. It's a disconnect. So specifically that the front disconnect, the disconnect that's going to go off the front of your riser, it threads into the riser, and then your stabilizer just goes into that. They come stock with a little barrel nut piece. So what you're able to do is right now, you get out of the stand, you're going back to your truck, and you got to stand there for a couple of minutes and on thread from your stabilizer. With the disconnect, it's 3 twists. You pop it off, you put it in your bow case, and you're ready to roll. So the big thing up front is just going to be the easy use and the ability to just pack it away and to fit in a smaller space. Caleb mentioned earlier too, if you're out in Idaho or Montana and you're hiking around and you can strap it on your back and you don't have like a 7-inch, you see those packs all the time where the guy has like a 7-inch stabilizer sticking off the side and he's going to hit a tree or do a bunch of other stuff with it. So the ability to just quickly kind of snap it on and snap it off, there's something to be said about it. And the V-bar, so when we mention V-bar, everybody has a different name for it. It's that sidebar piece. And our V-bar, our sidebar, has the built-in disconnect as well, and it comes with that barrel nut. So it's the same system. So for you to go from a bow right out of the bow case to put your stabilizers on, you're looking at probably less than 15, 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the big thing there is just going to be easy use. From a dampening standpoint, it's just CNC machined aluminum. With that V-bar, we've built a recessed pocket in it, and we include a plastic, like a Delrin washer almost. And if you put that on the back stabilizer and thread it in, it does help a little bit. You're not going to notice a huge difference in terms of vibration if you're using a well-built disconnect and a well-built V-bar. They shouldn't move on you. They shouldn't rattle. They shouldn't contribute a whole lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we've talked some about, like the conversion over from the target world to hunting world, and how a lot of things work where there's one industry that kind of leads things and the other industry takes that and applies it to, what works for them. I see a lot of stuff, and this is from an observer standpoint, right? So if it's just way out of the realm, tell me I'm just dumb. But, I see a lot of these target archers who have, a double back bar thing going on where there's one off of each side. Is that something that you might see in the hunting scape one day, or is that something that's kind of strictly for target?
It's funny. When I started, I came on right after school. It's been like 6 or 7 years. We used to sell a ton of double V-bars, those double back bars, not for hunting, for target. And it's dropped off pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
I think going back to what you were saying, from an expense standpoint, you're just pretty much doubling how much money you're spending on a stabilizer setup.
Yeah.
And then from a practicality standpoint, it's something that I don't think we're going to see in hunting. You get your guys that may try it. I'm sure there's people out there that do it, but I don't think it's ever going to be mainstream. Archery in general is very much as you guys know, a tinker. It's guys in their garage and they're machining their own equipment, or they're doing something to that bow that we probably won't recommend, but they swear works pretty well.
Yeah.
So inevitably, you're going to have your guys out there doing things like that. But I don't necessarily think it's something that's going to catch on, especially on the 3D side. Most hunters roll into target and vice versa through 3D archery. So when we're at the ASAs and the IBO tournaments, we don't see a whole lot of double V-bars.
Yeah.
And that's naturally going to be your market where you have a lot of your back and forth.
Yeah, so crossover there. That makes sense. So if you were going to talk to some guys who, maybe have just dabbled in the stabilizer world and it's been more of a dampener than anything, or just haven't ran one at all and don't know much, where would you tell somebody to kind of start? What's a starting point, and then where should they kind of progress or test out from there?
I think your local dealer is going to be your best resource.
Yeah.
To be able to walk in there and hopefully they're going to have product on the shelves that you can try, and they'll have some demo rigs set up. Archery's tough. It's a sport where what we touched on a couple of times, it works for somebody, it isn't going to work for another guy. Mm-hmm. So to be able to get in there and really see, is a 7 or a 9 going to make that much of a difference for me? Your local archery shop is really going to place to do that, to be able to test the bow, test the product, and really figure it out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels from golf to archery, and that's one of them. If you're buying a golf club, you're going to go somewhere probably and try to use it first before you spend $400 on a driver.
Yeah.
And you like to think in archery they're going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, and there's a great, your dealer's going to know a good starting point. And for the average person starting off, they're not going to notice a big difference from starting to, the next step up. Mm-hmm. So, to go with what the professional or the guy that knows something is saying is typically going to be the best way to do that.
When do you know that you need to try another pro shop?
Caleb was up in Wisconsin, and they served beer up in Wisconsin. So
okay, calm your nerves.
If I was going to an archery shop and I was over 21, I'd probably head to Wisconsin personally. we did a tour up there, and we were cracking up. We were doing shoots, and we wanted to see some photos of some of the ranges and stuff like that, and they were sending us photos of how big their bars were. So,
that's funny.
I'd go to Wisconsin.
Well, that's pretty funny. I was kind of asking more because our local guy is just kind of anti-stabilizer, which he's a great bow tuner, and it's so strange.
He's not just anti-stabilizer, though. It's not like just stabilizers.
He's anti a lot of things.
There are things, yeah. He's kind of set.
Archery is interesting. You got your we talk about it on the marketing side. You got to tailor to your guys that are on Instagram 20 times a day and got 3 DSLRs and they're running around all over the place. And then you got your guys that don't have a smartphone and haven't done really anything online.
Yeah.
So you get your old school guys that, say what we talked about, where it's, you don't need anything like that. You buy the bow, you thread something on there that kind of works, and you roll in the woods and you're going to kill a buck, anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, finding somebody that can kind of see both ways and that will at least let you try what you want to try, I think.
Yeah.
And, there's other places that you can shop, and there's inevitably, other local shops. And if there's not anything around you, YouTube is everybody's best friend.
Sure thing.
So to be able to go on there and see what everybody else is doing, what works for most people is probably going to work for you at least to start.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do y'all have some YouTube content out there for people to go check out?
Yeah, we do. We anytime we come out with something, we put videos up, and Caleb and a couple of the guys are always up there talking about what works and what doesn't work and what we have coming. So our YouTube channel is always a great resource. Calling into us, a big part of what Caleb does is people call in and pepper him with questions. So,
good.
Caleb or any other guys, they love to hear what everyone is doing.
We'll put his direct line in the show notes. And
yeah,
just kidding.
I can give you a cell phone number.
Perfect. No, that's cool.
Just text him.
Okay. The hands-on approach is cool, though. I mean, that's super handy to be able to call up somebody who knows actually what's going on and just be like, hey, what should I try out or whatever. Just because, honestly, we talk about our local guy. He doesn't have a big pro shop or anything, but he's been around and done a lot of stuff, and he's good to go to. But we're pretty rural, and a lot of hunters are, and it's kind of tough to get to a shop. And that's kind of the nice thing about nowadays with the internet and having a lot of information out there to where you can call up a good business like y'all's and be able to just chat with somebody who does know and maybe exchange some good old hunting stories while you're doing it. So that's cool, man.
Yeah, we have what we call the Axel tour, and we have a team that's on the road full time. They live out of an RV, and then we have a big old transit van that we take around, and we go around the country. So we were, I think we hit all but 8 states this year, and we try to go to as many tournaments and local shops as we can.
Yeah.
So on both of those, we have full demo rigs as well. So for us, full ASA, IBO circuit. If you want to try some stuff, you come by the trailer or come by the van, and you can talk to our guys.
That's cool.
That's cool. What somebody wants to get a job doing that? What kind of degree does that take?
It's yet to be determined. Yeah, we might get an intern next year. We built out a pretty sweet transit van with bunk beds and a few other things, and we may get someone out there on the road.
That's
cool.
Awesome. Those transits are awesome.
We'll be posting about that this fall.
Yeah.
Caleb just spent 2 weeks. We rented an RV, a little trailer, and he pulled it behind him, and he went around the shops and Bow Fest up in Wisconsin.
That's cool.
And,
of course he did.
He had a pretty good time.
Of course, Wisconsin.
It was a reason we went up there once we figured all that out. But we got our team right now. Sam and Damon are on the road all the time. They're heading to Massachusetts for an ASA tournament up there, and then we're done. But I think we did 35, 45 tournaments this year probably. So, they left in February, and they've been home 2 weekends between February and now.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Sounds like
we try to keep them pretty busy.
The music touring scene that Tyler used to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Golly, that's crazy, man. Well, that's cool. It's cool to see that y'all are that dedicated and care about getting information out there. If any of our listeners want to go check out some of your offerings and maybe learn a little bit more about stabilizers and about Shrewd, where can we send them?
Yeah, so our website's just shrewdarchery.com, SHREWD archery.com. Everything on social, we're at Shrewd Archery. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can look us up, and if you have questions, you can always DM us, and we'd be happy to help you.
Cool.
And then phone number and everything's listed on all those. So we're here 5 days a week, and we're here to help.
Cool. Well, we'll be sure and include all that down in the show notes for everybody to be able to get to pretty quick, including Caleb's personal information down there. So
there you go.
I guess in closing, doesn't Shrewd kind of mean like blunt or something like that? How did y'all come up with the name Shrewd?
So the gentleman that started, his name was Melvin Shrewsbury.
Oh.
And so he did it. So it's, I don't know, he pulled it out of his name. I couldn't speak to where the thought of it came from.
Gotcha.
But we're lucky that Sam didn't name it. Sam is he's president and CEO, and he's great at so many things. Naming anything really is not one of them. So we're just happy that he didn't have more of a hand in that, because who knows what we'd be called.
That's your dad, is that right?
Yeah, he's my dad.
Yeah, cool. What's the family dynamic like, and running such a tight knit family business like that?
We're lucky. We all I don't want to say we're all good at different things. We're all bad at different things, I guess. And some of us are less bad at others, and they happen to overlap pretty well. So,
I've never heard that said.
You sound like an optimistic pessimist. Is what you sound like.
Sam's my dad, and Riley's my brother, and they're very technically oriented. So they have a huge hand in the products we develop and what we come out with, and they work with Caleb and the rest of our engineers, and they make some pretty cool stuff. Damon and myself really are more behind the scenes. So Damon does. She used to do a lot of our staff, a lot of the administrative, and really just keeping Sam in line. But she's a big part of the road crew. So they're the road crew now. So Sam's still in on all the calls and all the meetings for the new products, and they're on the road meeting customers and kind of telling them what we're about and explaining the products. So we get along, pretty well. Anytime we're lucky that we're a close family because we spend so much time together. Otherwise, we'd have some problems. And in a lot of ways, it's nice to work with your family because you can kind of call them on the crap, and then you go home and you eat dinner and everything's fine.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot of political correctness when it's the four of us in the room.
That's good. PC kind of makes things lame sometimes, so I'm glad.
Yeah, it does. And we got a good team, and luckily they ignore some of the stuff that they happen to overhear if we're not being CPC. So the guys are like family now too. At ATA and everything like that, we have a good time when 10 of us roll in there and we hang out for a week. So we got a really good crew.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, it shows like that. You have to find a way to see the good in it. So I'm glad y'all found a way to make it fun because it can wear you down.
By Sunday, well, my goal in all those things is always to figure out a way to fly in late and fly out early.
Yeah.
Avoiding setup and tear down is like the biggest part of my spring, but it works sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get to work sometimes, but it's better to just kind of jack around and have fun and let other people do it. But anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, thank y'all so much for talking to us about some stuff. I think you cleared up some stuff, and we didn't want to get too much in the ins and outs about like carbon density or anything like that because it's stuff that. We're trying to learn how to be better hunters, right? And yes, I'm glad that there's smart people in this world who know how to figure all that stuff out. But real world application is what I like, and it comes over well in the podcast format. So thank y'all very much for doing a good job of kind of explaining some stuff to us. And well, I guess good luck this season if you do get to go to the stand. I know Caleb's going to go to a couple, so that'll be cool. But either way, man, thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for having us on. It was fun.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Laven.
No problem. We'll see y'all. Understanding this stuff is really something I feel like can take my archery game to the next level.
Absolutely, man. Guys, make sure you go subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
Live in it.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.